In this lesson, we're going to cover authentication. Authentication in cybersecurity is a security measure that ensures individuals or entities are who they claim to be during a communication or transaction. Basically, authentication focuses on verifying the identity of individuals or entities participating inside of a digital interaction. Now, let's pretend you just walked out to the mailbox and you received two different letters. One of those letters was sent from an anonymous sender, and it claims that you owe $1,000 for a new laptop that you don't remember buying. The other one is from your country's tax collection agency, like the IRS here in the United States, stating that you owe them $1,000 in unpaid taxes for the last year. Now, as you examine the IRS letter, you see something on it, like the official stamp, your real social security number, and other identifying information, as well as a field in the form letter that states how much and exactly when you paid your last tax bill. Now, which of these two letters are you going to trust more? Now, if you're like most people, you're simply going to throw away that anonymous letter for the $1,000 laptop bill. Instead, you're going to take that tax collection letter a lot more seriously because it passes your authentication test. Now, in today's digital environment, we don't just use images or seals to determine if somebody is who they say they are, because that can be easily spoofed online. But instead, we want to conduct identity verification using various forms of authentication. These days, we have 5 commonly used authentication methods. We refer to these as something you know, something you have, something you are, something you do, and somewhere you are. Now, first, you have something you know. Something you know is also called a knowledge factor, and it relies on information that you as a user can recall. Typically, this will be a secret word or phrase or a password known only to you. The most common type of knowledge factor is a username and password combination because it's something you remember and you're prompted to enter it every time you log into a system. Now, second, we have something you have. Something you have is also known as a possession factor, and this relies on the user presenting a physical item to authenticate themselves. If you've ever worked in a large office building, you may have been asked to present your employee identification badge to a security guard for verification whenever you try to enter the building. This is a good example of something you have or a possession factor. Another good example of this is when a website sends you a one-time text message code over to your smartphone that you're going to type in during the login process, because in theory, only you have possession of your smartphone, so your smartphone acts as the possession factor. Third, we have something you are. Now, something you are is also known as an inheritance factor. This relies on the user providing a unique physical or behavioral characteristic of the person to validate they are who they claim to be. Often, you'll hear this referred to as biometric authentication. For example, I use facial recognition every day to unlock my iPhone when I want to use it. Or, I use my index finger to unlock my MacBook Pro using the embedded fingerprint reader on my laptop instead of typing in a username and password. Fourth, we have something you do. Now, something you do is also known as an action factor, and it relies on the user conducting a unique action to prove who they are. For example, when I was a kid, my friends and I had a secret handshake that we could use to verify that we were part of Jason's clubhouse and we were the ones who were allowed to use our club's treehouse. Similarly, I've worked in organizations that use handwriting samples or an analysis of how you're walking to determine if you're authorized to perform a certain action. Fifth, we have somewhere you are. Somewhere you are, also known as a location factor, relies on the user being in a certain geographic location before they're granted access to a system. For example, when my kids were younger, we used to have geofencing set up on their phones to provide them with a way to unlock our front door using their smartphones. But it would only work if they were within 20 feet of our house because we didn't want them inadvertently unlocking the door if they were sitting a few miles away at their friend's house. Similarly, many companies use location-based factors to allow or deny access to their critical applications. I worked at one organization that would only allow me to use certain functions on my smartphone if I was inside the United States. But as soon as I left the United States, a lot of those functions would be blocked to protect the security of the data on my device. Now, each of these 5 factors can be used by themselves, but you can also combine 2 or more of them together to create what's known as a multi-factor authentication system. If you have 2 of these, we call this 2FA or two-factor authentication. If you have 2 or more of these, we can also call this MFA or multi-factor authentication. Now, MFA, or a multi-factor authentication system, is a security process that requires users to provide multiple methods of identification to verify their identity. This approach ensures that even if one factor is compromised, like a stolen username or password, that the attacker can still not gain access because they need a second factor, such as a hardware token, a one-time text message code, a fingerprint, a facial recognition scan, or something else like that. Now, authentication is critical to understand because it's going to be used to prevent unauthorized access, to provide user data and privacy, and to ensure the resources are being accessed by valid users only. First, we need to talk about authentication being used to prevent unauthorized access. Given the increasing number of digital threats out there, it is truly imperative that we ensure that only authorized individuals are accessing our organization's system and data. By creating a solid authentication model within your organization, your systems can effectively keep out impersonators or malicious actors out of your network. Just consider your online bank account. If it didn't have stringent authentication standards, then anybody could log into your account and steal your money. But by using the proper authentication mechanisms, we can greatly reduce the risk of this occurring. Second, we use authentication to protect our user data and privacy. By verifying users' identities before granting them access, platforms and other websites can ensure that personal and sensitive data is only being shown to the rightful owners or authorized individuals. For example, your health and medical records are usually encrypted and stored within a patient portal, and you want to ensure that only you and your doctors can access that and view your health information within that system to protect your privacy. Third and finally, we have the use of authentication to ensure resource validity. Now, in the digital realm, where resources like cloud storage and network bandwidth are considered to be shared resources, it becomes truly essential to ensure that only valid, authenticated users can consume those resources. So remember, when it comes to authentication, it really is a means to verify the identity of users or entities inside of your digital interactions. There are many different tools and factors that we can use to achieve robust levels of authentication, including knowledge factors, possession factors, inherence factors, action factors, and location factors. But at its core, authentication ensures that individuals are who they claim to be and grants them access and privileges that they're going to be entitled to. In a digital world where identity and access management are paramount, authentication is standing there as a security guard to ensure the security, privacy, and proper access of your data and resources is being achieved across the organization.